Our next two speakers are not available for a live question answer session, but Nameer has promised to take questions later, and that is the talk that we will be streaming next. He'll be talking about Asian Waterbird Census as a tool for conservation of wetlands. And this is a case study from Kole Wetlands, which is a Ramsar site in Kerala. So can we please play Nameer's talk now?
Good morning, all of you. At the outset, let me thank the organizers of the Symposium on Bird Monitoring for giving me this opportunity to share some of my experiences with the long-term monitoring that we have been doing in one of the wetland in Kerala, the Kole Wetland, which also is a Ramsar site. Well, we have been monitoring the birds at Kole Wetlands, primarily as part of the International Waterbird Census, which incidentally is one of the longest running global citizen science biodiversity monitoring program that was started way back in 1967. And Asian Waterbird Census that was started in 1987, where our country has been contributing to this global process as part of the Asian Waterbird Census since 1987. Coming to the long-term monitoring of waterbirds that we have been doing in the Kole Wetlands, which we have been doing since 1992, so close to 3 decades of monitoring. And Kole, incidentally, is one of the largest wetland in Kerala. Has an extent of 160 square kilometers spread across 2 central districts in Kerala. This is the population trend of the birds of Kole Wetland, though over the last 3 decades, though it's been mostly fluctuating. It's good to note that the population of the total population of birds has all more or less remained just over 20,000 birds over the last 3 decades. There are good news as well as bad news. Some of the bad news is that the population of anatids has been on the decline at Kole Wetlands. So also the population of the whisker tern has been on the decline. However, there are good news like darter, which also is a threatened species. The population has been on the increase. The shorebirds, the population, there has been a slight increase in the population of shorebirds in Kole Wetlands over the last 3 decades. And another good news is that the cottontail, the population has more or less been stable, or otherwise Kole has been providing a good habitat for the cottontail. This is I specifically cited the example of cottontail because if we look at the national level as part of the State of India Bird Report, which says that there has been a decline of the cottontail population to the tune of close to 60% at the national level. So in that context, cottontails are doing good at Kole Wetlands. Well, since 2014, we have been using this excellent tool called the eBird, using which we are able to capture all the bird monitoring that's been happening in Kole across the months and across the years. So between here what is shown is the data between 2014 and 2019. So between these years, on an average, 500 to 1,500 checklists have been uploaded from Kole Wetlands. So this enabled us to do additional analysis than what we have been doing until 2014. So which gives us the details of the bird documentation happening across the months and across the years, and the peak years and the low, the peak months, the low months, all such details could be captured. And similarly, we could do more detailed analysis for the waterbirds seen in Kole Wetlands. For example, what is shown here is an example of Indian pond heron, which does mean that Indian pond heron is reported from 50 to 70% of total checklist of birds that's uploaded from Kole Wetlands over the last 4 or 5 years. Similarly, this actually shows the figure on the right actually shows the flock size of Indian pond heron, which actually does mean that the number of individuals of Indian pond heron that was reported on a in out of the total checklist that is submitted. So likewise, additional ecological information could be captured thanks to the tool called the eBird. So similarly, we have information on all the species of birds of Kerala, birds of Kole Wetlands using this tool. As I said, we have been documenting it since early 90s, and the copies cover of some of the preliminary reports that we brought out. Okay, another thing that I want to tell you is the conference that has happened in 1993 in Bangalore on the bird conservation strategies for the 90s and beyond, where I presented a paper on the conserving Kole Wetlands, a potential Ramsar site from South India. At that time, we did not have a Ramsar site, and subsequently, in 2002, we could get Kole Wetlands declared as a Ramsar site. So what I'm trying to say is that the documentation that we have been doing since early 90s did have some useful outcome in the form of the data collected as part of that could be used for getting Kole Wetlands declared as a Ramsar site. Well, just like any of the wetlands across the country or across the globe, Kole also faces a lot of conservation challenges. Some of them are shown here. Well, coming to the wetland conservation policy interventions, as we all know, Ministry of Land and Forests notified the Wetlands Conservation and Management Rule in 2017, and based on which the state wetland authorities have been formed. And one of the most important mandatory responsibility of the state wetland authorities is to notify the wetlands under the state wetland authority. However, in many of the places, in our case, in Kerala, the notification is yet to happen. So this is something which need to happen in the near future for the conservation of the remaining wetlands of our region. And though we have in Kerala, we have 4 Ramsar sites. Many of them do not have a management plan or a conservation plan. If at all there is a plan available, it remains on paper, because none of these conservation or management plans or management actions are actually happening in these Ramsar sites, which is something that needed to be done immediately. And if you look at the the protected area network of the state, we have excellent protected area network in the state. However, when you look at the wetland habitat that is protected in the protected area network, it is very negligible. So that is another thing which need to pay some attention to. And the beaches, shores, and estuaries, they're not even considered as habitat, and it's completely neglected by the decision makers. So that is another thing where we should be paying more attention to. And long-term monitoring, it's been happening here and there, but in the state. But then we need to have a more systematic long-term monitoring program for our wetlands in the state. So I thank all the AWC participants of Kerala who had contributed to make this presentation possible, who have been documenting the birds for the last 3 decades. Thank Tej Munkar, thank Kerala State Forest Department, Kerala Agriculture University, who have been, all these 3 organizations have been, and plus Tej, have been supporting us for the last 3 decades, and organizers of this symposium to give me this opportunity. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Nameer. Unfortunately, Nameer had an emergency at his end, so can't be present live right now. to answer questions. But in our Day 1 26 March Talks Session 2 channel, we have a thread going for questions directed at Namir. Please post there and tag Namir so that he can access these on Slack later. And he has promised to take questions on Slack.